My name is Dana. I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I've helped bring hundreds of babies into the world. I never thought one of them would break my life in half. It was a normal Tuesday night shift. My charge nurse handed me a chart and said, "Room 4, she's in active labor close to pushing." I didn't even look at the name. I just grabbed my gloves and walked in. And there she was, Renee. My best friend since we were 7 years old. Sweating, gripping the bed rail mid-contraction, about to have a baby. For 1 second I was just happy. I smiled. I said her name. I told her everything was going to be okay because that's my job and because I loved her. Then the door opened behind me, and my husband walked in. Holding a coffee cup. Wearing the jacket I bought him for Christmas. Walking straight to her side like he'd done it 100 times before. He saw me standing there in my scrubs. His face went white. The machines kept beeping. Renee kept breathing through the pain. And I stood there, gloves already on, and I did the only thing I knew how to do in that moment. I finished my job. I helped deliver that baby. I checked its heartbeat. I wrapped it in a blanket and placed it on my best friend's chest, while my husband stood on the other side of that bed like he belonged there. Because he did. Welcome back. If you've ever had to stay calm while your whole world came apart in front of you, stay with me. This story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me you're still here. Subscribe because what happened after that night is the part you don't want to miss. Now let me take you back. Back before that hospital room. Back to when Renee was just my best friend, Caleb was just a good man, and I still believed the two people I loved most would never do this to me. I married Caleb 6 years ago. He's a carpenter. His hands are always a little rough, always smell like sawdust even after he washes them. He builds things that last. Porches, cabinets, whole additions on people's homes. People in our town trust him because his work never falls apart. Here's something I didn't understand until much later, something I don't think I fully understood even while I was living inside my own marriage. Caleb grew up poor. Really poor. A trailer on the edge of town, a father who left early, a mother who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't always keep the lights on. My family had more. Not rich but comfortable. A house with a yard. Never a missed meal, never a shut-off notice. I never once thought about that difference. I loved him for who he was. But Caleb carried it every single day quietly, the way people carry things they never say out loud. Some small part of him always felt like the boy who got lucky, the one who married up, the one who had to prove he belonged in rooms he was already standing in. I told him I loved him constantly. I meant it every single time. But there was a hole in him that my love just couldn't reach because it was never mine to fix in the first place. It belonged to him and to the years before I ever knew him. We were happy anyway. I don't say that to make what happened worse. I say it because it's true. Some Sunday mornings we'd just lie in bed and talk about nothing for an hour. He'd fix things around the house before I even asked. I'd bring him lunch on job sites just to see his face when he noticed my car pull up. We weren't perfect, but we were good. We were real. Renee and I grew up 2 houses apart. We were the kind of friends who finished each other's sentences by the time we were 10. But life pulled us in different directions. She moved away for a job when we were 23. Phone calls got shorter, then further apart than just a birthday text once a year. Not because we stopped caring. Just because life got busy and neither of us fixed it in time. Then last spring she moved back. She called me crying happy tears. "I'm coming home, Dana. I missed you so much." I cried too. I couldn't wait to see her. I couldn't wait for her to meet Caleb since she'd never actually met him. She'd moved away before we even started dating. She had no history with him at all. No memory of where he came from. No idea he'd ever been the boy from the edge of town. That mattered more than I understood at the time. Before I even got the chance to introduce them properly, Renee walked into the hardware store on Main Street to buy a few things for her new apartment. Caleb happened to be there too, picking up wood screws for a job. He saw a woman struggling to carry a heavy bag of things to her car, and he did what he always does. He helped. They talked for a few minutes in that parking lot. Neither one of them knew who the other one was. To her, he was just a skilled man who clearly knew what he was doing, easy to talk to, good with his hands. Nobody in that conversation was thinking about where he came from. For the first time in years, he got to just be impressive, plain and simple, with no history attached to it at all. I didn't find any of this out until much later. At the time, I didn't know a single thing. A few days after that, I finally threw the dinner I'd been planning for weeks. Renee, meet my husband. Caleb, meet my best friend in the whole world. I remember both of their faces doing something strange for just 1 second when they saw each other. A flicker. I thought it was just the normal awkwardness of new people meeting. I laughed it off. I was too happy that night to notice anything else. Renee opened a little flower shop downtown a few weeks later. She needed shelves built, a counter, some repair work on an old back door that didn't close right. I'm the one who suggested Caleb. My own husband. I told her, he's the best there is and family doesn't pay full price. I trusted them both completely. I didn't see it happening. I didn't see the way his shoulders relaxed around her in a way they never quite did anywhere else, even at home. I didn't see the way she looked at his work like it was something rare instead of something ordinary. I just saw two people I loved becoming friends. I thought that was a gift. I was wrong about that. There was one night a few weeks in when I noticed sawdust on the jacket he'd worn that day. He told me that morning he wasn't taking any jobs, that he was staying in to catch up on paperwork. I looked at that jacket for a second longer than I needed to. Something small and quiet went through my mind. Then I told myself I was being silly. He was a carpenter. Sawdust was just sawdust. I trusted him, so I let it go. I think about that jacket more than almost anything else now. It happened for the first time not long after. I don't need to describe it in detail. Caleb told me later that it wasn't about Renee being better than me or more beautiful or more anything. It was that around her, none of his old weight came with him into the room. She didn't know the boy from the trailer on the edge of town. She only knew the man standing in front of her, and that man in her eyes had never needed to prove a single thing. He told me he hated himself every time. He told me he kept telling himself it would be the last time. It wasn't. Caleb was never quite the same after it started. He got quiet at dinner. He stopped reaching for my hand in the car. He said he was tired from work, and I believed him because why wouldn't I? I thought we were just going through a rough patch. I tried harder. I planned date nights. I asked him what was wrong over and over, and every time he said, "Nothing, I'm just tired." I look back now and I understand exactly why I didn't push harder. Trust doesn't feel like something you should have to interrogate. That's what makes it so easy to walk right past the truth. A few months later, Renee told me she was pregnant. I hugged her so hard I almost knocked the wind out of her. I cried happy tears with her, the same way she'd cried when she moved back home. "Who's the father?" I asked her. "Are you seeing someone? Why didn't you tell me?" She looked down at her hands and got quiet. "It's complicated, Dana. He's not ready for people to know yet. I'll tell you everything when the time is right." I didn't push. I held her hand across that table and told her I loved her no matter what. I comforted my best friend about the exact thing she was doing to me. I didn't know that yet. She did. Caleb and Renee made sure I never had a reason to suspect anything. All of her doctor visits happened at a hospital almost 40 minutes away in the next town over. Never my hospital. That wasn't an accident. That was a plan. Her labor came on fast, faster than anyone expected. There wasn't time to drive 40 minutes anywhere. The ambulance took her to the nearest hospital. I've already told you what happened in that room. I finished my shift that night. I didn't scream, not there, not in front of anyone. I went into the supply closet, sat down on an overturned bucket and let myself shake for exactly 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, clocked out, and drove home like a normal person driving home. The moment I got inside my own house and shut the door behind me, whatever I'd been holding up in that hospital came apart all at once. I didn't make it past the hallway. I slid down against the wall onto the floor and I cried in a way I don't think I'd ever cried before in my life. Not quiet tears. The kind that come up from somewhere underneath your ribs. the kind that make it hard to breathe right. I kept seeing it over and over, the coffee cup in his hand, the jacket I bought him, the way he walked to her side like it was nothing new. I cried until my throat hurt. I cried until I didn't have anything left, and then I sat there a while longer anyway because getting up felt like it meant the night was real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Caleb came home a little after I did. I heard his key in the door and I made myself get up off that floor before he saw me like that. I told him I was tired. I went to bed, or I lay there pretending to, because I needed time before I said anything so I wouldn't just say the first angry thing that came into my head. 2 days later he finally told me the truth at our kitchen table. He was crying too by the end of it, the kind of crying a person does when they've been carrying something so heavy for so long that saying it out loud is almost a relief even while it's destroying everything. He told me it had happened more than once. He told me he hated himself every single time. His hands were shaking so badly he had to put his coffee down. I asked him one question. Did you love her or did you just let it happen? He didn't answer. He just put his face in his hands and cried harder, and I sat across from him and cried too, both of us falling apart at the same table where we'd eaten breakfast together for 6 years. I think that's the part nobody tells you about a moment like that. It isn't just anger. It's grief, right alongside it. For a marriage you can already feel slipping out of your hands while the person who broke it is sitting 3 feet away from you, crying just as hard as you are. I told him to leave the house that night and he did. Here's the part one didn't understand until much later, from things people in town told me afterward, piece by piece. Weeks before any of this ever reached me, back when Renee first found out she was pregnant, she'd already told Caleb plainly. Choose me and this baby or lose us both. She wasn't going to raise a child in secret, hidden away in the next town over forever. She wanted an answer. Caleb never gave her one. He was too much of a coward to choose anything. He just kept stalling, hoping the question would somehow answer itself, hoping he could keep both his marriage and whatever this was with Renee without ever having to lose either one. That's exactly why nothing about the pregnancy ever reached me. Not because the plan was airtight. Because he genuinely hadn't decided what he was going to do, and every day he didn't decide was one more day he got to keep both. Her labor coming early wasn't part of anyone's plan. It just happened faster than anybody expected, and it took the decision out of his hands before he'd ever made it. By the time I threw him out of our house, Renee's ultimatum was still sitting there, unanswered, exactly where she'd left it weeks earlier. With nowhere else left to go, he finally gave her the answer he'd been too afraid to give all along. A woman refusing to be hidden anymore, and a man too weak to lose everything, so he chose the version that let him keep something. Word moves fast in a small town. By that winter they were planning a wedding. I wasn't invited. I didn't expect to be. But everyone talks, and I heard the date, the place, and the time from 3 different people before anyone even asked if I was okay hearing it. I thought about that wedding for weeks. I didn't decide to go in anger. I decided slowly, the same way I do everything. I went. Uninvited, in a plain navy dress, no drama in how I walked in. I stood near the back of the room while the pastor asked if anyone had a reason the two of them should not be joined together. I raised my hand. I told the room the truth plainly. I told them Caleb was my husband before he was ever Renee's. I told them the baby had been hidden from me on purpose at a hospital 40 minutes away so I would never find out. I told them I found out anyway, standing in my own scrubs doing my job. The room went completely silent. Renee's face crumbled in front of everyone who used to think she was the sweetest woman in town. Caleb wouldn't look at anyone. I turned around and walked back out those doors, and I didn't look back once. That silence followed both of them long after that day. Caleb's business didn't just get whispered about. Real clients canceled real jobs. Within a few months he was driving to the next town over just to find work, because nobody local would hire him anymore. His own in-laws, my parents who had loved him like a son for 6 years, quietly stopped calling him altogether. Renee's flower shop struggled too. The counters and shelves Caleb built with his own hands are still standing in that shop, but half her regular customers stopped coming in once the story got around. The very thing that first brought them close together ended up being one more thing the whole town could see and judge every time they walked past that window. I heard almost a year later from someone who still talks to both of them, that their marriage isn't what either of them thought they were fighting for. That the house is quiet in the wrong way. That Caleb still flinches sometimes when someone mentions carpentry work in front of new people, like he's waiting to be measured again. That Renee sometimes says she feels like she won a fight and lost the prize. I don't know if that's exactly true. I only know that whatever they built out of all that hiding didn't turn out to be the happy ending either of them were chasing. As for me, I still work the same job. I still love it. I moved into a smaller place, just me for now, and some mornings the quiet still feels strange. But it's an honest kind of quiet. Nobody in that house is lying to me anymore. If any part of this felt familiar to you, I want you to hear this. Trust is not the same thing as blindness. You can love someone with your whole heart and still miss the one sign that mattered, and that does not make you foolish. It makes you human. The people who hide things from us usually count on exactly that kind of love to cover their tracks. I think about that hospital room sometimes. The gloves already on my hands. The job I still had to finish no matter what my heart was doing in that moment. I didn't get my revenge with anger. I got it by telling the truth once clearly in the one room where it mattered most. That's my story. If it made you feel something, tell me in the comments. Tell me if you've ever had to stay calm while everything fell apart around you. Tell me if you ever saw a sign once and talked yourself out of it the way I did. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because there's more where this came from.